From education to housing to job support, the United Way impacts tens of thousands of people in need across our community. A network of several dozen nonprofits benefit through their partnership with the United Way, and one of them is the Interfaith Health Clinic. Executive Director Melissa Knight joins us to talk more about the United Way's impact on your organization. But first, let's start with your mission, ongoing since 1991.
Yes, we provide primary medical, general dentistry, and counseling to the low-income working uninsured on a sliding fee scale that they can afford to pay.
You have treated more than 25,000 patients
Yes, sir.
Since 1991. We appreciate your work. How does the United Way help you?
I can't imagine what we would be doing today without the United Way. And let me say, we were not at United Way in the very beginning of our organization. But even then, United Way wanted to see that we succeeded. They offered their support in ways that were not monetary when we were not a partner or a member agency. They offered ways for us to engage with the community. And then since we've become a partner agency, they have helped on every level that you can imagine. I can't imagine where our community would be without the efforts of United Way, because they truly try to impact the entire community.
When we look broadly at healthcare in America right now, you said it's been a roller coaster. What are you telling your patients at the moment about what their future looks like?
We're telling them to hang on. We tell them that regardless of what happens in Washington or Nashville, that Knoxville does its very best to take care of its own. And we at Interfaith take every dollar that is given to us and stretch it to the best of our ability to provide that health care. And every dollar that comes in through United Way is stretched to the best ability that they have to ensure organizations providing other services that Interfaith does not is able to continue and sustain.
Ms. Knight, we appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
And remember, we are looking for your help, and you can make a donation right now at WBIR.com to the United Way, which is short of its goal this year, but you are helping us make it up.